Jack Smith had secretly collected 28 months of Jim Jordan's personal phone records, and then he had to sit down in Jim Jordan's hearing room and answer for it. January 22nd, 2026, House Judiciary Committee, Washington, D.C. Watch what happens in the next few minutes carefully, because what took place in that room is not what most coverage showed. The cameras caught the prepared statements. They caught the legal arguments and the back and forth. What they didn't catch, what almost every outlet missed, was the moment Jordan reached into a folder and placed a specific document on the table between them and what that document contained. Before you can understand why that moment landed the way it did, you need to understand what Smith had actually built and how long it had been running before anyone outside a small circle inside the Biden Justice Department knew it existed. And for 3 years, his team had been building one of the most expansive covert surveillance operations in modern congressional history. Not a theory, not a political talking point, a documented, court-approved, FBI-executed intelligence sweep that had quietly collected the private phone records of sitting United States senators without telling a single one of them. The operation had a code name, Arctic Frost. Nobody outside a small circle inside the Biden Justice Department knew it existed. That changed in the summer of 2025, when whistleblower disclosures began reaching Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley. What he found in those documents stopped him cold. Smith's team had not just investigated Donald Trump, they had built something far wider. Over 400 Republican individuals and organizations had been swept into the scope of Arctic Frost. The Republican National Committee, the Republican Attorneys General Association, conservative political campaigns, and sitting members of Congress, their phone records collected under federal non-disclosure orders that legally prevented them from being told it was happening. Their own phone companies handed the data over. No warning, no notification, nothing. How wide did it go? Grassley's documents showed Smith's team had targeted roughly 1/5 of all Republican senators. Senator Ted Cruz, who chaired the Arctic Frost subcommittee hearings, put a number to it, a digital sweep into approximately 100,000 private communicators, 100,000. And then Verizon sent Jim Jordan a letter. The letter confirmed that his own personal phone records had been subpoenaed by Smith's team, not for a few weeks, not for a few months, for a 28-month period spanning January 2020 through April 2022, collected while Jordan was a sitting member of Congress, serving on the very committee that was now conducting this hearing. Jordan was not just the chairman running the investigation. Jordan had been one of the targets. Before January 22nd, another hearing had already set the temperature for everything that was about to happen. Weeks earlier, executives from AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile were called before the Senate to explain why they had turned over senators' records without a single notification. Each of those companies had a contract with the Senate. That contract contained a specific clause. If anyone came after a senator's phone records, the company would notify the Senate immediately so members could defend themselves. Not one of them did. Senator Lindsey Graham looked at the AT&T representative and asked one question. Direct, no preamble. Did your company honor that contract? The representative said they would have to get back to him. Graham stopped him. No, he said. You failed. You failed to honor the contract protecting all of us. The executive had no answer. That exchange set the temperature of everything that followed. Now it was January 22nd. Smith walked into the hearing room looking composed. He had a clear, prepared statement. Every decision to charge Trump was his alone. He had never spoken to President Biden about the investigations. Every subpoena was lawful. Every judge had approved each one. He was ready for the questions. He was not fully ready for what Jordan pulled out of that folder. Jordan did not open with a speech. He did not start with a monologue about weaponization or political persecution. He picked up a document, set it on the table between them, and began with something specific. The document showed Smith's team requesting Jordan's personal phone records from Verizon. 2 years of incoming calls, 2 years of outgoing calls, text message logs, collected without notification, collected while Jordan served on this committee. Jordan looked at Smith directly. Here is the thing about a moment like that. The legal arguments are almost irrelevant. Smith's position was consistent. Toll records are historical data, not real-time interception. Federal judges approved every subpoena. The process was followed correctly. Everything was within the law. But none of that answered the question Jordan was building toward. Because Jordan wasn't asking about the law. He was asking about the scope. It was not one senator. It was not two. The document showed roughly 1/5 of all Republican senators, 100,000 private communicators, And then something that had nothing to do with phone records at all. Susie Wiles, Trump's campaign manager, now the White House chief of staff, had a phone call with her own attorney secretly recorded without her knowledge. Think about what that means for a moment. Attorney-client privilege is not a technicality. It is one of the foundational legal protections in the American system, the guarantee that what you say to your lawyer stays between you and your lawyer. It exists precisely because the government should not be able to listen to your legal strategy. And Smith's team had monitored that call. Without her knowledge, without her consent, Cruz said it was a modern Watergate. Not a resemblance, not an echo, a direct comparison. Trading a physical break-in at one office building for a digital sweep through approximately 100,000 private lives, conducted not by operatives in the night, but by the full authorized apparatus of the United States federal government. The scale was the point. Smith pushed back. His lawyers had been clear on the distinction. Historical toll data is not wiretapping. The judges approved it, the process held. Then Jordan produced one more document. This one was different. It was an internal record from Smith's own team, dated before most of the Arctic Frost subpoenas were even issued. It showed Smith's investigators had read the House January 6 committee report cover to cover, page by page, over a single weekend, and had incorporated it directly into their investigative plan. The same internal record contained one specific word: leverage. Smith's team wrote that they would leverage the congressional report to avoid what they called needless interviews. Leverage. A congressional investigation. To build a federal criminal case. Jordan read the word into the record. Then he looked at Smith and waited. Smith had no direct answer for the word leverage. The room was quiet. Jordan's time was running out. He had one question left. He did not waste it on a legal technicality. He did not ask about grand jury procedure or non-disclosure statutes. He asked something that required no legal expertise to understand. If the roles had been reversed, if a Republican Justice Department had secretly collected 2 years of Democratic senators' phone records under non-disclosure orders without notification, while those senators were serving on oversight committees, would Jack Smith have considered that acceptable? Smith paused. 3 seconds. He did not answer the question. That silence is now permanently on the record, captured on camera, in a federal hearing room, in front of the entire country. Long after every prepared statement has been forgotten and every legal argument has dissolved into procedural history, that 3-second pause will remain exactly where Jordan put it, in the congressional record, attached to the name of the man who collected 28 months of the chairman's phone data and then had to sit across from him and explain why. But here is what that silence actually represented. Smith had spent 3 years building a case. He had argued in courts, before judges through appeals, that everything his team did was lawful and justified. He had survived the collapse of the Trump prosecution. He had survived the closed-door deposition in December. He had walked into January 22nd with a prepared statement and a legal team and a clear line of defense. And Jordan had asked him one question that none of that preparation could answer. Not a legal question, not a procedural one. A simple question about fairness, about whether the same standard applied to everyone in that room, or only to the people on one side of the political divide. Smith did not answer it. The cameras caught that moment. Every network that aired the hearing cut to that pause. 3 seconds that said more about the state of American political accountability than any prepared statement delivered that day. Grassley had called it a modern Watergate. Cruz had compared it to a digital break-in. Graham had told the phone company executives they had failed every senator in that building. And now Jordan had placed the final document on the table. Ask the final question and let the silence do the rest. The questioner had been the target. The target had walked into the questioner's room, and the room went silent. Subscribe for more congressional hearing breakdowns. The moments the news covers in seconds, we break down completely.